Welcome to the 10th and final episode of The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. It has been an exciting journey, looking at how trends of fuel on the international market have had a bearing on Malawi's economy. My name is Alinafe Mlamba, a Malawian journalist working with Zodiac Broadcasting Station. In this episode, we're soliciting views from Chancellor College economist Lucius Cassim and social commentator Victor Chipofya Jr. But first, let's take a quick recap of our previous episodes.
We have organized these demos just because the cost of living is just very high.
We talk about the prices of fuel on the international market because, as you are aware, we are importing this fuel. So what happens to the free on-board prices there also affects us here.
What is happening is that on the globe we have inflation squeeze, loosely use that way. Prices of goods and services have increased exponentially, and you might wish to know that Malawi is a net importer of goods and services. We don't influence the global prices. As such, we are just absorbing the heat from the globe.
It's a difficult situation really for Malawian consumers.
The significance of the rate of inflation is that it tells consumers how much the cost of living has risen by. That way, they are not misled by the rise in the price of one or two commodities. I'm the first to admit that the cost of living has gone up.
And we are ready, once there is a fixing of a rail between Anchinji and Salima, to bring product in from Nakala direct into our tanks in Mlamba in Kaningo, so that we have lower landed costs that can also support the government in ensuring that the fuel prices at the pump price are reduced.
The way Nokima is monopolizing the whole process of the business. Because at first it was 50-50, PIF 50%, Nokima 50%, but then now they want to take over up to 90% of the business. Which is a negative to us as global exporters.
This is The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. With the recent trend of fuel pricing, as well as other issues emerging in the fuel sector, advice is being given to authorities to take necessary action, as there are fears that the trend will continue to have a pinch on consumers. These issues include hikes in pump prices, justified by the Malawi Energy Regulatory Authority, and the decision by the National Oil Company of Malawi to monopolize fuel importation. Let us first hear from Lucius Cassim from the University of Malawi, Chancellor College. First of all, Lucius, what is your comment on the trend?
I wouldn't be surprised because much as the increase in the prices of fuel would hit consumers, but as you know, the pump prices here, or the price of fuel here, are a function of so many factors, including the levies that are there in issues of fuel. So I think so long as we maintain these, we keep on with these levies, some of which some quarters have argued that they are not necessary, then we will continue experiencing an increase in fuel prices. Because should anything happen out there, the impact to the consumer will always be higher than it would if we did not have these levies. So the increase in prices of fuel, well, it's not a good development, but it will keep fuel prices will keep behaving like that. In addition to the fact that there are external factors that are raising the prices, but also the levy. To me, it's the levy. We remove these levies, the consumers would not feel the pinch as they would be feeling now.
If we're to look at the decision by the National Oil Company of Malawi to bring in the fuel through rail and at the same time to monopolize the fuel importation process, do you think this is going to change the situation in any way?
No, I don't think so. I don't think that the Malawian consumers would benefit from this deal or this offer. Summary, all I can say is that when we look at these fuel price issues in Malawi, we should not forget that what is hitting us are the levies. Not necessarily to say that all of the levies are irrelevant. Some of them are relevant, but certainly some of them are not relevant. And there have been a lot of voters arguing that maybe we should remove some of these levies. And I think if we were to remove some of the levies, we would benefit a lot, and therefore would not be seeing these episodes of increases in prices of fuel. Or indeed, the increases would not be as high as they are now, or they seem to be now, to the final consumer. That's what I can say.
But what is social commentator Victor Chipofya Jr. seeing in all this?
Biggest problem that I would have when it comes to issues of fuel is that most of our leaders do not consider the fact that when fuel prices go up, it affects every other commodity in the country. All commodities also go up. So looking at the economy in Malawi, a lot of people have already been struggling due to the COVID-19 pandemic and the cyclones that have been happening. So already Malawians have been pressed so hard. So to have prices of fuel go up, I don't think the authorities are looking out for the livelihood of Malawians. And then to add on to that, we hear that fuel prices are going up here in Malawi, but in other countries, they're actually being lowered down. So the question that it raises is, what is it that we're doing wrong that the other countries are doing to keep their fuel prices stable, and yet we fail to do the same thing?
What advice would you give to authorities considering that the livelihood of Malawians is being affected?
My advice to the authorities would be they should not consider fuel prices as something that only concerns the elite, because maybe that's how they would look at it, to say it's only people who can afford motor vehicles or motorbikes that would be complaining. They should look at it holistically. It affects the person in the village, because the soap they buy, the price will go high because fuel prices have gone high, and transportation to take that soap to that person in the rural area has also gone high. So you should look at it as one of the key factors for the survival of every human being, no matter their status within the country.
Lastly, if the trend is to continue, what impact would this have?
It's detrimental to the economic development of Malawi. It will bar a lot of investors to coming in to the country, because, for instance, if anyone was to open up factories or the manufacturing factories in the country, they would be deterred because of the high prices of fuel, which would mean a lot of costs on their behalf. And therefore, if they do the cost-benefit analysis, they would rather invest in a country where the fuel prices are realistic. And if a country is losing investors, then obviously we're not going to develop as we should.
That concludes the end of this episode, and of course the end of this season of The Telescope, Cost of Global Fuel Crisis on Malawi's Economy. My name is Alinafe Mlamba. Thank you for subscribing to The Telescope. Goodbye.